So welcome to the VTA Board of Directors meeting of Thursday, May 4th. And the meeting has now been called to order. Elaine, if we could have the roll call, please.
Board Member Carr. Here. Board Member Chavez. Alternate Board Member Cortese. Alternate Board Member Davis. Board Member Dieppe. Alternate Board Member Harney. Board Member Hendricks.
Present.
Board Member Jones.
Here.
Board Member Camus.
Here.
Alternate Board Member McAllister. Here. Alternate Board Member Nunez. Board Member O'Neill.
Present.
Board Member Perales.
Present.
Alternate Board Member Rennie. Board Member Vayadanathan.
Here.
Board Member Yeager. Vice Chairperson Liccardo. Chairperson Bruins.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, that takes us to orders of the day. And staff is requesting that we move regular items 7.1, contract with BKF for final design services for the Capital Expressway Light Rail Project. Item 7.2, bus procurement contract with Proterra. Moving both of these to the consent calendar. And just so as point of reference, both of these were heard by the Administration and Finance Committee. I also would like to recommend that we switch the order of items putting 7.4, the presentation of the draft Plan Bay Area 2040 before agenda item number 7.3, which is the next network VTA transit plan. So let me explain. I'm asking for the presentation, the 2040 presentation to go first because that is a relatively short item, and that would allow us to have a good discussion in terms of the next network. Okay, so it's not to hold our guest here for a long period of time, if that's okay.
We're going to lose one of our commissioners at 7. I think Dave has a community meeting, so I just want to be mindful of how important that discussion is, just to make sure we have the most of us here.
Okay, so you'd rather keep it in the order that it is? Okay, I will stay with that order. So the only changes then is moving item 7.1 and 7.2 to the consent calendar.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, that moves us now to the to awards and commendations. Item 2.1 is a recognition of our retirees, and Christy Victoria, Management Aide, will be calling the names of the retirees as we present the certificates of commendation.
Good afternoon, board members and audience. Welcome to VTA Retirement Recognition. Our first commendation goes to Lewis Turner. Lewis Turner, badge 894. Lewis is our bus technical trainer. He began his career with VTA in 1979 as a coach operator, and he received the 1 Million Mile Award, Safety Award for attaining 28 years of safe driving. Lewis was promoted to bus technical training in 1999, where he developed a positive working relationship with hundreds of VTA trainees. He collaborated with an open-door approach in mentoring employees and was well esteemed for his amazing ability to empower them. Lewis provided 38 years of distinguished public service and was a valuable asset to the Operations Division and to VTA. Congratulations to Lewis Turner. Our second and last retiree are not able to be present today, but please allow me to congratulate Michael Drayton, Coach Operator, badge 3214. Michael provided 28 years of distinguished public service at VTA. And the last one is Jose Ray Espinosa, badge 330H, Coach Operator. He provided 33 years of distinguished public service at VTA. Congratulations to Ray Espinosa and to Michael Drayton. Thank you so much. This concludes our retirement recognition.
On to item 2.2.
I'd like to ask the following Transit Patrol deputies, Cody Cogliandro, John Rizkalwa, and Chris Tolbertson to please join us here at the top, at the front. I'd like to also ask Deputy Tony Chang of the Santa Clara County Law Enforcement to join our board chair, and board member Chavez, and our general manager. On February 28th, Transit Patrol deputies Cogliandro, Rizkalwa, and Tolbertson were working in downtown San Jose when a routine stop of a vehicle prompted concerns about a teenage girl in the passenger seat. Following their instincts, the Transit Patrol deputies referred the incident to Deputy Tony Chang of the Santa Clara County Law Enforcement Human Trafficking Task Force. The Transit Patrol deputies and Deputy Chang continued the investigation, which led to the arrest of 2 adults for human trafficking, pimping of a minor, and possession of illegal weapons. The teenage girl was removed from the situation and immediately connected with community resources to help victims. Authorities learned the victim had been reported missing in San Diego County earlier last year. The VTA board commends Patrol deputies Cody Cogliandro, John Rizkalwa, and Chris Tolbertson, and Deputy Tony Chang for their alertness and swift actions, which saved the teenager from a very tragic situation. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, that moves us on to public comments. This is the portion of the meeting reserved for people who want to talk about items that are not on the agenda. I have 3 speakers, and you'll each have 2 minutes. Arthur Keller, Rosa Musselum, and James Whiteman. And while they're coming up, and Elias Kemal as well.
Good evening. My name is Arthur Keller. I read a note yesterday from the Friends of Caltrain that the Caltrain board is considering a second fare increase just 1 year after individual fares were raised. The note said, and I quote, "The rationale to do a second early fare increase before the release of the study that they're doing on transit fares is that VTA is having budget issues which will result in decreased contribution, and Caltrain will need to draw on reserves to balance its budget." When I voted for Measure B, I was not told about the cuts to hourly service in our bus service, nor was I told about the cuts to Caltrain. I hope that you'll reverse these cuts to Caltrain. I think that it's a large part of the county is very interested in service to Caltrain. North County, San Jose, South County all rely on Caltrain, so we should not be cutting our the VTA's contribution to Caltrain. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rosa Musselum, James Whiteman. There we go. Is that Elias? Oh. And Elias Camel.
Yeah, I want to speak on 7.1 and 8.1 about the VTA Next network. When is that going to start? Do you guys, if you have any information on that, you can mail me. My address is 1131 North 3rd Street, San Jose, California, 95112. And if anybody here could talk to me about that, I would appreciate that. And also, the light rail, the Capitol Light Rail extension, when is that project going to start going under construction? If you have any information on that, and when is that going to be completed, you can get my address is 1131 North 3rd Street, San Jose, California, 95112. I just want to have some answers on those questions. Thanks.
Thank you, James. Come on up.
Good evening. My name is Elias Kamal, and I'm a student serving on the Fahil de Anza Board of Trustees. I first came before you all a few months ago after hearing the price of the EcoPass for college students would be increased. Coming from the college district that worked with VTA to establish this program a few years ago, we take pride in seeing the EcoPass grow to the thousands of regular bus riders across several colleges in the region that it is today. But last week, our students were notified that this program would be abolished to be replaced with a new pass that would eventually increase our yearly fees from $15 to $40 for the same services. This is increasingly concerning for our vulnerable student population, as over 60% of our students don't even live in the college town of Cupertino, but come from the greater San Jose region. The proposed fees for the college students are not in line with VTA's mission of serving our community in an equitable manner. First, they place all college students with the exact same fees without taking into account the fact that community college students are often from a drastically different socioeconomic status than university students like San Jose State. Second, these increasingly fees on our students do not come with improved services. We have been advocating, lobbying, meeting, and at times even protesting for improved bus stops on our campuses and more frequent services between Foothill and De Anza for years, to no avail. And third, these fees come with no opt-out options. Several $100,000 will be charged to several colleges in the region, and the assumption from VTA is that the college student governments will be paying this. But all of our colleges have low enrollment, an increasing budget deficit, and are not going to be able to cover these costs. So these costs will go directly onto students like myself who are already struggling as it is. I hope the VTA can work with us and other colleges in the region to address this matter before we take increasing negative actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Omar Chatty, Rafael Villagracia, and Neil McClintock.
Hi there. My name's Omar Chatty. I don't have the agenda, so I don't think this is on it. So quickly, it's about State Route 152, which had another bad accident today, injury accident today near Bloomfield. The two-lane section, the very dangerous section that kills a lot of people and delays a lot of people. So I wonder if now with the passage of, with Jerry Brown's overcoming his infrastructure, 15-year infrastructure disability, so he's now rehabilitated with SB1 thanks to Jim Bell. Let's see if there are 4 categories where we might be able to get that $10 million we need to match the $10 million that VTA has set aside, but Caltrans pulled out their $10 million. We get the $20 million, get that EAR started so that we might have a shovel-ready project in 3 years. And that is it's a trade corridor. It is a safety issue, SHOPP file, STIP, and the trade corridor. So there's 4 categories that we should be able to get $10 million squeezed out of the $5 billion a year, and we can save some lives and get this road going, get this EIR going so we can bring out the issues and work on it. And as you might remember when I talked about 101 and the median barrier that was put in there, it's now saving lives. You know, Dennis Kennedy is gone and he's got his wings, and Don Gage will go someday. And then Jim Kineen deserves some for Highway 85. And I would hope that you guys would want your wings. Just like Ken Yeager would get his for, he's not here today, for 280 and 80, the 280-17 issue, which was very dangerous. If you remember when that was put in, that's been fixed now. So I'd like all of you guys to get wings if we can find that money for the EAR and get that process going for the next 3 years. Okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Save some lives.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Villagracia. I stand before you today, like the student who spoke before me, to oppose the proposed VTA EcoPass fare increase. Where I live is a considerable distance from any institution of higher education that I can afford. Okay. I don't have a car, and I doubt I'd be able to keep up with the cost of its maintenance, if ever. This is precisely why I found solace in the fact that De Anza College was a participant of the EcoPass program. I was incredibly amazed at both De Anza and VTA for having implemented this program for the benefit of the students. I've taken the bus to school every single day since I've enrolled at De Anza. It definitely takes a while, but it's the only option I have short of walking. Hearing that the VTA would increase the price of the EcoPass presents a challenge to low-income students, especially for those who are only where they are because of waivers such as the BOG, which would drastically decrease the price of enrollment. The proposed price hike would increase the cost of attending college for these students by a significant amount. I plead for you to reconsider, to keep in mind the number of students that would consider this an incredible challenge to their access to education. Thank you.
Thank you. Neil McClintock, and then Ali Ahmad.
Hi. Okay. Seems like. Hi, my name's Neil. I'm also a student from De Anza College, and like those who came before me, I just wanted to come here with a comment about the increased VTA bus fare pass for the EcoPass. So currently it's about $3 to $5, and it's set to be increased to $40 annually. So my concern is mostly that the current new VTA EcoPass, this fee has been suggested because of the fact that it said that the current EcoPass is unsustainable. But it doesn't sound like some sort of like, oh, we oversold our revenue, so now we have to raise it by like 2 or 3%. We're talking about nearly tripling the eco-fare pass for De Anza students. And so I guess my question is sort of, if it has to be tripled, why are we given an unsustainable system in the first place? The price that we have now was the result of years of negotiation between activists on campus, the administration, and also the VTA. And so the price that we were able to reach is the one that we have now. And so after years of negotiating that price, and actually lots of student activists, one of who I actually know today, who's now working in the professional world, he was very upset to hear that the fee is set to be increased by this much. But I guess that is my main concern, is that the fact that it has to be tripled, this isn't some sort of small adjustment based on revenue or inflation or something like that. This is a drastic increase. And so I hope that there's more communication between the VTA board before they make decisions like this with the students who would be affected, just because we're all very concerned, and it's a drastic increase. So thank you very much.
Hello, I'm also a student at De Anza. My name is Ahmad. I'm also here to talk about the EcoPass increase. Should I be closer? Thank you. I take the bus twice a day. I would have taken it here, except it's a little too long of a ride, so I Ubered. But I think that the public transit system that we have in place, I think it's unmatched in terms of city transit and infrastructure. The VTA has done a great job with that. But I do think that raising the price on the EcoPass is going to damage students. It's about $160,000 worth of funds added into our college budget that can't be sustainably maintained. So I think that's important that we take that into account. I know that bond money is used for repairing bus stops, opening up new lines, but I think we should also focus on who uses the bus system first. And I think that students are particularly vulnerable in this instance. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our public comments. So now we're going to move on to public hearing, of which we have none. And so your committee reports, item number 5, all of the committee reports are in your reading folders. And so now we're going to move to the consent agenda. And I have one, before I take a motion, I have one public speaker on item 6.9. So Roland, if you could come up. And after that, I think I have a board member who would like to ask a clarifying question on another one. Go ahead.
So, thank you. So this is about the delegation of authority that basically allows staff, to move state and federal funds between various projects. And I'm not suggesting is there anything nefarious here, but what I'm asking for is for transparency. And what I'm saying is that when this happens, first of all, put whatever is happening as an item on consent on a specific committee, right? And then when the committee is over, you just put it on consent for the board meeting. But there is some kind of trail of what we're doing here. I'll give you an example. It's our double tracking to Gilroy, okay? So we went to that, and that ended up being double tracking for the Light Rail Mountain View for Super Bowl. But right now, as Mayor Liccardo knows, we've got a situation in MTC. We're looking at $95 million of USAA, urban zone funds. okay? We need to track these and making sure that we're doing something appropriate, and if necessary, do some, fund swaps or whatever. But all I'm asking for is transparency and tracking this rather than deals, taking place, in some kind of backdoor at MTC and nobody knows about it until everybody just goes, wow, what happened here? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, yeah.
One moment. So anybody need to recuse themselves for any of these items, so they can declare that now? Mr. Camus?
Item 6.5.
Okay. Mayor Liccardo?
Items 6.2, 6.4, and 6.5.
Anybody else need to recuse?
On item 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, 6.5, and then item 7.1, since we put that on consent, right?
Okay, yes.
And you may have a conflict with 7.1.
Yes, 7.1 is on consent. I'd also like to recuse myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
Board Secretary, do we have all of that? Okay. And now, before entertaining a motion, I think we have a clarifying question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On 6.5, in 2016, the City of Cupertino and VTA entered into an agreement, and the contribution from the City of Cupertino was 1.2 million. And recently, there was an additional 500,000 that was again the contribution to VTA recently. I just want to understand, is this going towards our 10% match? Will this be seen as a local match? And when the Measure B funding comes in, how will this be considered? I needed clarification there.
I can answer that question. Yes, so that money would contribute towards your local match, and Measure B funds can be used on this project.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, now I will entertain a motion if there are no.
Motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar?
Anybody know?
The consent calendar, sorry.
Okay.
I'm happy to move it. I didn't recuse on anything.
Okay,
There's a
can you,
second by
could you do
someone
that?
else.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a log of who has to recuse themselves on which items. So all those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay, so it passes unanimously with the exceptions of the recusals, correct? Okay, we got that one done. Okay, now we're going to move on to, and remember the agenda that we just passed had 7.1 and 7.2 in it, so now we're going to move on to item 7.3. 7.3. And I think this item, who's introducing this item? So item 7.3 is the final transit service plan. Staff presented the final transit service plan at all of our advisory committees and at our 3 standing committees in the month of April. The summary of the discussions per committee are noted in the staff report. I have 11 speakers on this item. And so what I'm going to ask is, because all of us have heard these in committee and such, rather than go with a staff report, I'm going to ask for the public comments up front, okay? And so because I have 11, I'm going to call several names if you want to just line up so we can go through. Norma Baranga, Ron Hung Shao, Carmen Hallstrom, Aiden Zunabi, Melissa Miller, Arthur Kelly. And there's still more to come, but that's the stardust.
Hi, my name is Norma Berrigan, and I'm here because they want to be cutting the bus routes, especially bus 37. And I live close by there where Hillsdale is, and it doesn't pass us that often. I've been taking VTA for 30 years, and that bus 37 runs every hour, and it passes by the Central County Occupational Center, and it passes a few minutes before the school ends, the classes end, and there are lots of students that miss the buses, and they don't want to wait an hour more for the next bus. So they go and take the walk to the Capitol Light Rail stations. And the same thing happens from people that get off the light rails or either from bus 70 at Capitol Light Rail Station, they miss the bus 37 heading to West Valley College. And they don't want to wait an hour for the next bus 37. So they have to go to the school, to the Central County Occupational Center, and they walk, take a walk. And there's some other people that they carry grocery bags, a lot of them, and they cannot be walking a long way to Hillsdale carrying all the stuff. And I would not like the bus 37 to be cut off at all because there are people that really need that. But VTA doesn't, it runs a lot, not that often, every hour. It should be running every 30 minutes and minutes before the classes are over. So that, after the class is over, so then people from the students could go ahead and be able to catch the bus, and that, but the VTA will know that there sure are a lot more students, people catching the 37, both directions. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Ranhong Xiao. I need bus 63, stop at Redmond and Meridian. Blossom Hill is too far for me to walk to. Without 63, is there any other bus I can ride on to go out so conveniently? No. I hope 63 won't be cut off after Blossom Hill. Now, by riding on 63, I can go out independently to the church, to shopping, to the community center for lunch and reading in the library. Especially, I can go to Deer Dog Transit Center to connect to the Caltrain, the express bus, the light rail, and the BART. I can transfer to Oakland, to San Francisco, and many places when I need. Besides, I can see a doctor by myself. So please don't be cut off after Blossom Hill. If you have to do so, please try your best to keep the same route after Blossom Hill, but reduce the frequency of your bus schedule. Perhaps you can combine with other buses like, for example, 13, to keep the service at our area. Or is there any other community bus substituting for the cut-off part of this route and connecting to 64 or even the light rail? By the way, there are many senior residents like me who also need to ride 63 for their convenience. Please pay some attention to consider our need. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Carmen Hallstrom, and I'm here for the 181 VTA Express from Fremont. I am not really sure how many of you take public transportation and will truly and fully understand what a great impact will negative, because I myself don't have any modal transportation. I've been waiting how am I going to get here to San Jose, and it would be taking AC Transit to BART to the 61 and 61 to light rail, and it's just nearly impossible. I've been taking VTA for the past 26 years, and a lot of students also are in the same situation. To me, this is literally my lifeline. I don't know what am I going to do if the 181 gets canceled. If they were to at least consider to run it on, during the working hours and like after work, and after that you can just, space it out, and not on the weekends. Also the 180 going from Fremont BART to Milpitas Mall, we can do without one as well. But the 181 is, like I said, my lifeline. I'm been actually losing sleep over it. It's like, how am I going to get, to work in the morning? So I hope that you reconsider, because the impact, it will be great. The, negative affected, most of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Aiden Zanobi. I manage a transportation demand management department, transportation solutions at San Jose State University. I'm here to give you our concerns about the next network plan. That there's a couple of bus lines that is scheduled to be discontinued, and it will impact us seriously. Bus 181 from Fremont, with just this lady before me just explained, is a big one. Our surveys consistently show we have about 1,300 students and employees take that bus from Fremont BART station to downtown. As it's scheduled to discontinue with the next network plan, if the expectation is these people to take BART to Northeast San Jose and switch to a Rapid 500, the proposed, and to bring them to downtown, well, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. Many of them are very upset about this change, and they have told us that they're not going to do that, and they're just going to switch to driving. If even half of these people to drive to campus, we're in trouble. We cannot absorb these many cars coming to campus. The other one that impacts us is the discontinuation of the Dash. Dash and actually Express 181, these have their own ridership corridor. These are different ridership corridors. Dash is a very short-term shuttle between the train station and the university. We're looking at 1,000 riders a day. I'm not sure how this can be replaced with a complete bus route that extends to East San Jose. Same with Bus 181. There is an independent ridership, independent of BART ridership exists in the 181 corridor. Please make this decision very carefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Miller. I am a county employee, and I used to work here in this building, and I've taken the 181 for about 10 years. I now work at Valley Health Plan. I still take the 181, hop on the light rail, and get to work every day. If the 181 is discontinued, I and many other people who live in Fremont and Newark and work here in San Jose will be forced to, and I looked at the new plan online to see what my options were. So I would have to take an AC transit bus, which I have to pay for because the county Clipper card doesn't cover it. Go to Fremont BART, buy a BART ticket, which the Clipper card does not cover. Take the BART all the way to Berryessa, jump on the 66, and then get to the light rail and head to work. So I'd have to leave home probably about 5 o'clock in the morning every day just to get to work on time and take 4 different modes of public transportation. And I know I'm speaking on behalf of many others who could not be here today, and I know I couldn't even count how many San Jose State students catch the bus at the same place I do who don't have vehicles at all. So I'm here to strongly urge you to reconsider discontinuing the 181. And I think it would be beneficial to maybe run it just during the commute times, maybe 6 to 9 every morning or 6 to 10, and then in the evenings from 4 to 7. I think that would save a lot of money, but also be able to accommodate the people who work and go to school here in San Jose. So please, please reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you're walking up, I want Elizabeth Alexis, Tiffany Rodriguez, Lisa Tran, Penny Elson, Eugene Bradley.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Arthur Keller. A decade ago, Palo Alto faced cuts to the 88 bus, and Palo Alto successfully worked with the VTA to forestall those cuts. Before that, VTA 86 bus serving Palo Alto was eliminated. The cut to the 88 bus alone will reduce the percentage of residents of Palo Alto who are within 1/4 mile of fixed route transit from 74% to 61%. I request that the VTA partner with the City of Palo Alto to coordinate the cuts to the VTA 88 hourly bus service with VTA provided bridge funding and Measure B funding for the lower cost City of Palo Alto shuttle to fill service gaps that the VTA cuts will create. VTA staff reports have not been clear about the paratransit service areas of Palo Alto and other parts of the county. They show if a bus runs once an hour, it shows as being in the service area, but I don't think that provides eligibility for paratransit. I think it's based on when the service actually runs. So the service areas that are currently in Palo Alto, that are currently within 3/4 of a mile of hourly or better service, that will no longer be within 3/4 of a mile and will have their fares increased from $4 per trip to $16 a trip. It's not clear which areas in Palo Alto will be served by that because the map doesn't show it. The map simply shows, oh, there's service continuing, but it's not continuing all throughout the day. Confirming this will inform those who rely on paratransit service. Grandfathering those involved is also important, and I think that that's an important consideration to grandfather those who are involved in these service cuts to allow them to continue having the paratransit service. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to first say thank you for your time, board members, and Mayor Liccardo. My name's Jerry Lee. I'm a University Affairs Committee member at San Jose University. First, I want to say I'm completely against the removal of line 181. There are thousands of students and employees who take line 181 in San Jose, Milpitas, Santa Clara, Fremont, as mentioned earlier by several other speakers. There are over 1 million boardings per year and growing. So that's over $4 million in revenue that San Jose is taking away, and not just San Jose, that VTA is taking away. And earlier, someone mentioned that EcoPass is being raised for university students across the Bay Area. I mean, that's ridiculous. First, you're taking away our means of transportation. Now you're taking away our income. Now you're forcing us to take BART, which costs at least $4 from Fremont to the proposed Perriesa station. That's $8 a day, 5 days a week. For most students, that's over $2,000 a year in increased spending. We students do not have a lot of money to spend on transportation. Who do you expect to pay for it? Our parents? FAFSA? FAFSA gives like literally nothing for most students. Sure, we have parents who make $80K a year. Do you think all of that $80K after tax are going to our education? No. And Mayor Liccardo, I'm pretty sure you recognize my name, Jerry Lee. I've called you and the SF BART, Cody Kratz, out on Twitter multiple times. But you guys are not accountable for the reduction of spending on things that are important and the betrayal of Measure B supporters. Measure B gives $500 million to support underserved communities, not taking away routes from areas that require the routes. Thank you for your time. And I'm very disappointed.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Vivian Ho. I am an environmental studies student from San Jose State University. I am also here to speak about the removal of line 181, and I will be brief. This line will not just disenfranchise the students and employees who take this line, the 100,000 or more people. It will also disenfranchise other students who come to the school via other means of transportation. Parking will be even more clogged than it is now. Other lines of transportation will have to take this overflow. And I appreciate the fact that it is extremely difficult to coordinate these systems of transportation, but I would just like you to consider the amount of people that you will be disenfranchising by removing this line. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Rodriguez, and like many others, I'm here to talk to you about not discontinuing bus route 181. As others have said, it will deeply impact students of San Jose State University, and with the EcoPass fare going up with the services that are being cut, it just does not seem fair to anybody. I strongly suggest that you guys reconsider this because it will have a huge impact on the university, not only the parking demand, the students, but everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lisa Tran, and I'm a student at San Jose State University.
I commute 8 times a week using VTA Bus 181 Express. I understand that the final next network plan is planning to discontinue the 181, and I strongly disagree with it. As a student, I do not have a steady income and experience financial struggles with the increased cost of tuition and the cost of living. Since I cannot afford to buy a car, the EcoPass has been vital to me, as it is my only way to get to campus. If the 181 discontinues, I will not have to pay $6 a day or $96 a month, which is a lot of money for a student. It does add up. Although I understand that the BART will provide a faster way to get to downtown, it is not free like the EcoPass Clipper card. Please reconsider discontinuing the 181 completely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Elizabeth Alexis, representing CARD, Californians Advocating Responsible Rail Design. We've spoken to the board before about this plan. We think it addresses a large problem, but this is not the right solution. VTA, in some ways, has given up, in a lot of ways, trying to address the commute market. And now we're reducing the rest of the service down to a smaller and smaller geographic area. There is no place in the world that this has been a winning formula. The winning formula is hard, but we have seen it work all over Europe in similar places to Santa Clara County. It requires better coordination, detailed transit planning, improve speeds, add in transit priority. It can be done, but it takes some work. We understand that you are going to adopt this plan today. Given that, we would strongly advise you to avoid some of the mistakes that Houston has made. At first, Houston looked like a success. Now it's very clear that their ridership is dropping. The only problem is they don't know exactly how much, and they don't know exactly why. And finally, they are reluctant to really dive into this because they had committed so fully to that program. Understand that you guys are trying to make an improvement. Make sure that you have a way to measure what we call linked transit trips, especially because now you're going to be requiring more transfers. So what happened in Houston at first, it looked like they had more trips, but it was the same or fewer numbers of people traveling, just having to transfer buses more often. Secondly, they did it at the same time. They made other changes to service. They'd opened up some light rail. They'd made some other changes to the fare, which made it very difficult to see what was going on for a long time. And even now, they haven't set themselves up so they can start to understand where it's working, where it's not working, what are the adjustments that need to be made. And finally, just keep an open mind to this. Understand that this is not necessarily the answer, but that everybody is committed to moving forward so that we can rapidly see if this is working or not. Thanks.
And there's 2 more speakers after Penny Ellison and Eugene Bradley. We have Asan Ndi and Nate Escoveria.
Hi, I'm Penny Ellison, speaking for Gunn High School PTSA. Our PTSA has partnered for many years with the City of Palo Alto and VTA to encourage alternative commutes and reduce car trips generated by Gunn's nearly 2,000 students, and to build a culture of transit on our campus. Today, a majority of Gunn students walk or bike to school. Students in outlying areas are served by PAUSD school buses, and about 100 in-town students use VTA 88. Gunn charges student drivers for parking on campus and uses those fees to subsidize VTA bus passes that are promoted and sold on campus to encourage VTA bus use. As VTA plans to cut the 88 and replace it with limited bell time, 67% of our students in a survey told us that they'd be less likely to ride the bus if we did that. So City of Palo Alto staff has worked with us to put together a plan to expand City of Palo Alto's shuttle route and service to fill some of the gaps in service the 288 service will create. This plan will not only serve Gunn students, but will also improve service and connectivity to residents at nearby low-income and senior facilities, as well as the VA hospital. And it will provide better connectivity for this part of town to Caltrain. However, funding for the plan isn't yet available. The city's met with VTA staff and they presented you with a letter today. The city needs funding. They need funding support immediately after cuts are made in order to make this work. So we ask VTA to work with Palo Alto to help fund this lower cost, efficient local solution. Gun PTSA has spent years promoting alternative commutes, including the VTA bus, cultivating high bus ridership among students, and the city supports VTA by providing supplemental service in areas that are difficult for VTA to reach. Please reward these efforts by continuing to work in partnership with us to create a local transit network that works for students, commuters, and residents. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
nice
you. And I do have one more speaker afterwards with Satnam Gill.
Evening board members. I'm Eugene Bradley, founder of the Silicon Valley Transit Users. I'm giving out a couple of documents stating, and thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing the public to go first, and thank you, Ms. O'Neill, for speaking to our group recently via teleconference. Anyway, in addition to what the public has just spoken so far, one of the things that of VTA's next network that we're concerned with in this final proposal, the elimination of the 328 and 330 limited stop buses. They run along Lawrence Expressway and San Tomas Expressway. Their elimination means at least 100 people will be clogging the roads of the expressways, Lawrence and San Tomas, creating even more accidents that we later hear about on Mr. Road Show. That wouldn't be fun, would it? Anyway, in addition to that, there is simply right now not enough bus service in the county to cover everybody. It's been that way for years, and given the input with this next network proposal of over 5,000 people, plus these people in the audience right here, it is past time for VTA to begin prioritizing increases in bus service now. Our county's population has grown over 20% since 1990, and basically, all VTA has gotten, all we've gotten from VTA, despite paying 3 different sales taxes and voting to have them, less and less. Gotta change it, gotta change it. So on behalf of our group, we're urging VTA to basically keep the 181 as well as reconsider keeping the 328 and 330. It is past time to get more bus service in this county now. Please choose wisely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board, my name is Asen Ndiaye. I'm here representing Working Partnerships and the Transit Justice Alliance. I'll be brief. At the outset of the plan, the goals of the next network were to increase access, ensuring an equitable system, and boosting ridership. As the board continues to make decisions regarding future budgets and Measure B funding allocations, we hope that the board will continue to prioritize these original goals as you balance these issues. We look forward to working with you on the implementation of the next network, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
My name is Nate Echeverria, and I'm the Policy Director at the San Jose Downtown Association. I'm here in place of our Executive Director, Scott Neese, who was unable to attend tonight, but also spoke at the previous board meeting on this topic. And we wanted to reiterate our comments sent earlier this week regarding preserving DASH, the downtown area shuttle, in this plan. First and foremost, people ride DASH. The issue with this line is not utilization or ridership. Over 1,000 people ride the DASH daily, and we feel that that number is only going to increase as development continues downtown. BART gets built downtown, new regional transit lines are added, high-speed rail. And we also feel that DASH serves a lot of the first mile, last mile problems that we have downtown. You know, DASH supports ridership on every other line, Caltrain, ACE, other VTA lines. The circulator element of DASH supports ridership on every other line. Our partners at Spur made the same point in their letter supporting the preservation of DASH. And kind of also, and most importantly, we see DASH as a construction mitigation tool. When BART and high-speed rail come downtown, there's going to be major disruption to our residents and businesses. Without DASH and a viable way to navigate inside the downtown without a car, we feel that these construction impacts and traffic impacts will likely be even worse. You know, all this said, the issue with DASH is not its importance to the community or its ridership. The issue with DASH is its funding model. And frankly, we just haven't had enough time to look at this funding model in depth and kind of look at different solutions. But what we do know is that if Dash goes away today, it's going to be very difficult to bring it back from the dead. In our eyes, the 500 route is great, but it's not a replacement. It's not comparable service to a circulator. So we urge you to preserve Dash at least until the completion of BART, and we look forward to working together to finding a funding model that works for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. First of all, I want to thank you for taking a baby step, approving agenda item 7.2. But just think about it, what you just did. You prove one thing, you take 5 steps backward by eliminating all this service, all these concerned member who was telling you they would have to find alternate method to get from BART wherever they have to go. When you look at your new VTA logo, it says solution that move you. What are we doing? We are eliminating service for the needy people who cannot otherwise rely on the autos and everything else. Think again before you approve this agenda item, because these are the people who voted for Measure B just last November. That's where the money should be coming to, because this community need to be served, not strangled. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, that concludes the public comments, and so what I would like to do now is, staff, I want to turn this over to you, and if you want to pull up any of your slides that you want, but if you could also maybe walk us through a couple of the points that we heard from the public, and do, in some areas, compare and contrast to make sure that as board members we fully understand. Okay?
Let's take it through a few slides. Let's see what we've got. We're going to show a few of the slides. I think maybe we'll start with this one and go to the next one, but these are the changes we made between the draft and final plan, so there was a lot of re-looking at things that we heard from the public. As you all well know, we've got thousands and thousands of comments along the way, and in many cases we restored services, maybe not to the same degree, but to a similar degree or a lesser degree in those same route areas. You'll see some of those up there in the orange dots. And so we did make a lot of changes from the first plan to the final plan. I think that was significant. Yeah, this next plan. So this is just a little summary about the plan. I think maybe to talk about a few of the concerns. I think obviously the biggest one we heard here tonight was the 181 comments from the students there. And yes, that is part of our plan. That's been part of our plan since we planned to bring BART into this county many years ago, was to put the BART system in, connect it with a high capacity, quick link into downtown, and cut back on the express bus services we have that are serving Fremont now. There are 4 of those. The 181 is one of them. And that has been, I said, that's been a long-range plan that VTA's had as part of the BART program, and finally being implemented now that we're bringing BART into the county in the end of this year. We have talked to Fremont AC Transit about their plans. They're doing a Fremont South Alameda County transit study starting this summer through the fall. So, you know, this is something we've raised up on their screen that they may want to take a look at in terms of how they serve Fremont residents. So I just wanted to mention that. There's a couple other items that we know we've been hearing a lot of. The Dash service is obviously one of those. You know, we can, as part of that, there's been a lot of discussion about where the new 500 route should be, whether it should run on Santa Clara or go on to San Fernando, which is where the current Dash operates. So we're going to try to take a look and see how we can make that work, and to what degree we can run on Santa Clara and what degree we can run on San Fernando. There's another line that's we've been talking a lot about with the community is the line 45 in the East Foothills. Many of the riders come from a veterans housing facility up in that area. We've been working with them on providing them actually one of our older vehicles, an older van that we're disposing of to serve some of their needs, but that doesn't serve the whole community up there. So I think we're going to go back and take a look at how we might be able to solve that problem and link them up maybe with the BART service that's coming into the Berryessa station. I think that's the few things I want to mention right now. If there's any other particular questions or issues you'd like me to handle, I'd be happy to address those.
Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to the board, but I would like to remind you guys where we started from. The last decision we made is we asked our staff to go off and try to bring back what an 85-15 plan would look like. We asked them to go out, re-engage the community, and what they've come back with is an 83-17 plan. So they've tried to respond. We've also said that we needed to do this within a certain budget. As we were looking at trying to make this kind of budget neutral is what we were going for. So given that, what I'd like to do is now open it up. And Mr. Camus, you look like you're ready to start us off.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. I want to thank staff for looking at bus route 13 and 63. I know they were modified, but they didn't show up on your little bubble list. There was a concern from a speaker, and I was wondering if we can address that concern.
So the concern was whether Route 63 would run south of Blossom Hill. Currently, Route 63 is our frequent or 30-minute trunk line that goes into Almaden Valley, connecting with the circulator Route 13 down there. In developing the draft plan, we found that the low ridership levels in Almaden Valley suggested that we should decrease the quantity of service there and reallocate it elsewhere. And the draft plan had a pretty drastic proposal for Almaden Valley. All 4 routes discontinued. In evaluating that decision with the public, going over the draft plan, we realized we should put some service back into that area, and we attempted to find cost-effective ways to do that. The options before us were to extend Route 63 back down to Camden and Almaden, and that would cost us an additional bust, bear an additional cost to do that. We did find that we had enough extra time left over in Route 64, which terminated nearby, that we could extend that down and not have a budget hit or a vehicle hit that way. So that was our cost-effective solution to keep Almaden Valley connected. It would mean that a lot of riders who currently use the 13 would use the 64 instead of the 63 to get northward.
That's great, and I'm hoping to get some kind of explanation I could put in my newsletter to take care of that. I want to thank you for doing that. I want to say that to the public, ridership is going down. We were looking at the numbers, and there was huge decreases in ridership, despite what some people think. We have to do something to address the decrease in ridership, and this is why we asked staff to go forward and try to find a better way to do our routes, and that's what staff came back with. And I'm willing to experiment. As I have said in the past, I'm looking forward to having the direct access or whatever, the on-demand. I'm looking forward to seeing the pilot coming along. I want to look at new ways of providing the best service possible. And in the meantime, I want to thank you for keeping the routes and keeping as much as possible. But we should be looking at different ways to operate, even if it is taking a look at allowing Dash to be operated by someone else, possibly, And again, I am for experimentation. I am for trying to make people more aware of what's available out there, because once they see what we have, I think it's a pretty darn good system as well. So I want to thank you, staff. I know it's been a very difficult task. We've had numerous community meetings. I know that you guys take all the arrows, and I just want to thank you for your commitment to try to make our commuters, more satisfied and have more services available. Thank you.
Anything else? Mr. Cortese.
Yeah, I appreciate the consideration on Route 45. I just want to note for the record, and the county can provide more information in that area. There's two park projects. Both of them, they're going to have regional connectivity, one in Elm Rock and one on Penitentiary Creek that we've been asked to look at. It'll be coming forward soon as a cooperative agreement with Eastside Union High School District, KIPP, charter schools, and other partners. So anyway, I do have a question on 181. I completely understand. I mean, you have to be completely outside the realm of transportation not to understand that we have a Warm Springs station. We're soon going to we'll have a Milpitas station, a Berryessa station, and this is the route as we now know it doesn't really need to exist much longer. I guess I'm just a little unclear as to how that phase out is intended to work. Is this, we vote tonight, and I apologize if this question is answered. As you all know, I'm an alternate member, so I spend a lot more time at MTC transportation meetings than I spend down here, unfortunately. But if you could just explain a little bit more is there any kind of transition plan to keep going during this kind of gap period between when 181 north of here is completely obsolete and right now where it's still actually being utilized? And
Right.
I'm just not sure what options are. I've used that bus many times to get to Fremont, to get to Oakland and San Francisco myself, and I can empathize with people who are very concerned about trying to take, some combination of local buses all the way up there.
Right, so the 181 Express would be discontinued when the BART extension occurs. So later this year, they would occur basically at the same time. At the same time, we would put in a new route called Rapid 500 that would start at the Berryessa BART station, come directly downtown, and end up at its other terminus at the Deardown station. And that would be a very frequent, fast route from the Berryessa BART station into downtown. So it actually the trip is shorter.
Right.
It's a fare issue.
Right.
But that's a concern.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I had.
So for clarity, I think, Jim, you answered the question specifically, but I think this whole network goes into play when Milpitas and Berryessa opens up. So it's not just the 181, it's not just the dash, the whole network does not turn on until those two stations open up.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And I don't want to belabor the point. I would just say in some cases here, like the 45, I would argue that the arguments made for its discontinuance make more sense now and almost no sense after the connectivity is available with the BART station, because all of a sudden you have people able to go there. But I understand there's going to be some reconsideration of how to deal with that. And again, I don't want to belabor the point given the presentation that's already been made. Thank you.
Okay, well, just going to go down the line. Go ahead.
Hi, I just had a question about the dash line comments. We've all received letters from organizations like Spur and the Downtown Association, and those advocates are coming out to preserve the dash circulator. And I've spoken to staff on this, and staff maintains that the 500 will be adequate in replacing the services provided by Dash. So I'm curious if you could boil down for me the distinction, like, what is the point of contention? If it's the equivalent service, what are the differences, and why is there even a point of contention?
So the Dash currently leaves Diridon Station, travels to 4th Street via San Fernando, comes back on San Carlos. A vast majority, over 80% of the boardings on that route occur either at Diridon Station or at 2 stops that are on 4th Street. So it's sort of an end-to-end, get you in deep into downtown service. The Rapid 500 proposal would go Diridon, then downtown along Santa Clara Street, and then over to the Berryessa BART station. It would have a stop in front of City Hall. So those folks who currently use the Dash and exit at 4th Street would now be exiting at 6th and Santa Clara. So a little bit of a change in where they're getting off the bus and a change in their walk to their destination. Because this is a rapid route, it would not make a number of local stops in downtown like the Dash does, because the objective here is to get you from the train station, whether BART or Diridon, into downtown as quickly as possible. Because the Dash is free, and this would have a standard fare, there have been some concerns about riders paying an additional fare to use this service. But since the majority of the riders we believe on this service currently use EcoPass, they would not experience a fare. Caltrain riders who have a monthly pass for more than 2 zones would also transfer for free. And in VTA's current proposal for a fare policy change, VTA to VTA transfers would be free. So the fare change would affect a small portion of Dash riders. It would be on Santa Clara Street, not San Fernando Street, a difference in walking distance. I believe those are the main differences.
The proposed suggestion of keeping the Dash at least until until BART comes all the way down, is that the
Phase 2.
until phase 2? I'm sorry, until phase 2. Is that something that staff has looked at, and what is your critique of that suggestion?
Well, I think we believe that our proposal for the Rapid 500 is solid. The Rapid 500 is going to run 7 days a week, weekends included, which the Dash doesn't run right now. So I think, obviously, when BART comes downtown and there will be construction, we'll have to develop an entire construction plan for our transit services, depending on, what construction technique is selected for the tunneling and the impacts at Diridon. So that Dash will just be one thing and a whole host of things that we'll have to look at and develop a transit plan for the time during the construction.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Oh, you want to? Okay. Mayor Liccardo.
Thanks. Going back to the 45, I just want to understand clearly what the status is of the provision of the van, because I'm hearing sort of conflicting views about whether or not the van is going to provide the service that the veterans need, and what feedback are you getting?
I've met with the veterans up there twice, and our first meeting was sort of a big group of meeting with all the veterans and the administration up there, and they talked about how they use the service. And the current 45 only runs weekdays, basically 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So if they have night meetings or if we want to go out activities on weekends, they obviously can't take public transit. So we came back a second time, Inez Evans, our chief operating officer, and myself, and we offered to provide a van or two that we are disposing of some of our older community buses. And they were very excited about that possibility. They have people with commercial driver's license, veterans already. They have mechanics, and they said, for them, that was a great solution because now they can provide their transportation during the weekend or during the day or at night. And they thought, now of course there's other people that ride the 45 that wouldn't solve the needs for, but the veterans up there are the vast majority of the riders.
Right. Okay, thanks, Jim. I appreciate we're still working through that. The 181, I heard several concerns about the substitute. A BART, obviously, I appreciate the analysis the staff did on page 6 that demonstrates that it's actually 25% faster. I'm guessing that a lot of the anxiety is around cost. And the question is this, at what point in the future could we hope for a free transfer from BART to VTA service? Is that tilting at windmills, or?
I think so. It's pretty close to tilting at windmills.
BART doesn't even offer any discount to students, so they offer hardly any discounts to begin with. We have not attempted to sit down with them and talk about what happens once BART arrives into Santa Clara County, but they have not volunteered that they would look at us as a continuation of their service. And so any transfers, discussions on transfers are not on the table right now. Anything we do would be at our cost.
I think it's important, though, in that case, you're right, the BART fare is still the BART fare, but students that would be coming down and transferring to our service would then ride our service free because they've got their San Jose TAP pass. So it would be the
Through
BART-
school?
Through the school.
Okay, and they were eligible, I mean, they're eligible today, even though they live in Alameda County, if they're taking the one anyway.
If they buy it through, right.
Right, so the cost, the new cost is the BART service.
Correct.
Okay. Going now, since we're on the subject of the 500, switching to the dash here, I just want to understand the free transfers fully from Caltrain and ACE. I understand there's a free transfer if you've traveled at least 2 zones in Caltrain. And so I just want to make sure I understand who that covers. So for a student coming from Menlo Park, there would be 1 zone up, right? So they would still be free. But if they lived in Sunnyvale, they would not be free. Is that right? Sorry, that's probably not a fair question since we don't run Caltrain. I'm looking at the map now, so it wasn't fair. Let me just tell you, it looks
You're right.
like
Well, the
Lawrence, Santa Clara, College Park, and Diridon are all in the same
Yeah, I just
zone.
pulled out my Caltrain map.
Okay,
I
good.
needed to reference
Yeah.
it, but the current first zone ends at Lawrence.
Right.
So anything Sunnyvale Station and above, which would be Sunnyvale, Mountain View, San Antonio, Cal Ave, Palo Alto above, is all 2 zones.
Right.
So that's the 2-zone fare. And the reason that's a 2-zone is because it's in line and it's more expensive than our monthly pass. Because if we gave it to the 1 zone, everybody that was smart would buy a Caltrain 1-zone pass to ride VTA for free and not buy a VTA monthly pass ever again. So there is a reason why it's 2 zones, because it's a 1 zone's cheaper than a VTA monthly pass.
Is there a way we could hug it out with Caltrain and decide that there's a package that you pay with a 1 zone and an Eco Pass? It's a price somewhere in the middle. I have no idea if the ridership justifies it or not. I mean,
Yeah.
you guys know better than I do, but
Yeah, we'd have to
we've
look
got a
at-
whole bunch of students living in Santa Clara or wherever. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the ACE, given where, the ACE, this is the end of the line for ACE, all the ACE passengers ride free on the dash.
Okay.
Because they've already ridden from, Tracy.
Right. And, yes, it's true. So, I noticed that the maps, which I found very helpful, describe the boardings. In the past, when we've looked at ridership, we see both boardings and disembarkations, which seem to me to be really, really important if we're looking at where we get riders and deposit them from the dash, since we assume that a large percentage of those are San Jose State students. Would we, if we were looking at that map, would the disembarkations look just like the boardings, or would it look dramatically different?
It's about the same, it's just reversed. I mean, the morning, people get off at Diridon, get off the bus on 4th Street. In the afternoon, it's just the reverse.
Okay.
People get on at 4th, there's some activity at 1st Street, and obviously the middle of downtown, and then over to Diridon.
Okay, and then, so I think I heard you say earlier, Jim, that you were going to look at a San Fernando alignment.
Correct.
Okay. That's wonderful news. Thank you for that. And would you come back to us in a couple months?
Yeah, sure,
Let us know.
without
Okay,
a doubt.
great. Yes, or whenever.
I'm on vacation after this meeting, so.
Sorry you have to dash, pardon the pun. So, I know, that was painful. So, it's a tough audience up here. So, yeah, it just seems intuitive to me that San Fernando would do a whole lot of good for getting a lot of riders to San Jose State directly. And not to mention the fact you got Adobe and plenty of folks who may be wanting to go over to the convention center or elsewhere. So it'd be great to take a look at that. And I appreciate your openness to it. Last question, I know there were a lot of concerns raised about BART construction impacts. We're not going to have BART construction impacts until we've got a full funding grant agreement, right? So we're several years down the road.
Yep.
All right, by then our bus routes will be totally different. Okay, thank you. I guess the last thing I'll just say is, I know that there's going to be a motion soon. I'm hoping that the maker of the motion will consider having us come back after we've approved a budget. I understand the goal here was to be budget neutral, and I am concerned, given where our budget is, budget neutral will not be what we can afford. And I think we need to take a very hard look after we pass a budget next month to really understand if this is everything we can promise our riders. And so I'm hoping that we'll have some tweaks that we can look at in the following month or two.
Okay. Supervisor Chavez.
Thank you. I wanted to start with a question that was raised by one of the speakers, and that is the issue around what's happening in Dallas post their experiment. Did you hear that comment? Houston. Or Houston, I'm sorry. It's all Texas. That's terrible. That's right. You know you were all thinking it. No, I'm kidding. But I am really interested in understanding what we, if anything, have learned from that experience. And then the second part of that comment that I thought was really intriguing was, what strategies do we use for course correction once we've been, under operation?
So in Houston, they experienced an increase in ridership on their system overall. Their investments were largely in increasing weekend service significantly, and they saw a corresponding increase in weekend ridership. They also found that the design of their network funneled people into their light rail system very efficiently, sort of a bonus they weren't counting on when they originally designed it. So light rail ridership went up. What has occurred in Houston over the past year is a similar phenomenon that's occurring nationally, in that ridership is declining. And there are many people speculating about why that might be the case, whether it's competition from ride-hailing services or cheap gas or a number of other causes. So I would expect that Houston is seeing some effect just like we are. But they did have initial ridership increases in their system, and that's been sustained for a while. In fact, they were one of 2 metro areas to actually see an increase in ridership in 2016 compared to 2015.
Did their drop in ridership correspond or correlate to what you were seeing across the country, or was it more significant?
They are still net in the positive. It'd be hard to separate the effects of the redesign from whatever national, yet to be diagnosed effect is going on.
And then could you talk about course correction?
Yeah, I'll take that one. As part of this process, and it was we laid out a little bit in the board report, we're going to come back late summer with our performance monitoring plan for the new next network. We're going to come back with some policy discussion for the board on our transit sustainability our policy, and we're going to evaluate this on a quarterly basis as after we implement it, and then the ability to do use our tools that we have to change routes, whether cutting back certain things or adding things in new places. That'll be all part of that, what we'll bring back to the board later this summer.
So, so a couple things that I just wanted to comment on. One, I wanted to also just share appreciation around Route 45. I do think that's a really critical, or 65, I'm sorry. Well, actually 45. Jeez. Anywho, and on 500, on Route 500, I do want to encourage San Fernando Street as to get reevaluated. And the reason is, I understood when I saw the original map why we were looking at East Santa Clara Street, but the more I look at it, and just looking at the proximity both to San Jose State and other opportunities in the downtown core, I just think it's valuable for us to take a look at. And then one thing I wanted to just comment on, and this may be a discussion as we have a longer conversation about the budget, and that is that I think when we look at partnerships with cities, and I think this is true for the county, county unincorporated areas as well, that VTA should have a single strategy for our investment in small, alternative buses or whatever it is that we're going to do to make sure people can get around in their communities. And what I mean by that is, I think it would be important for us to look at infrastructure like buses and stops and those things that are capital in nature and not ongoing in nature. And my worry about the ongoing in nature is that, given just where our own budget process is, I think it may give cities a false sense that we know how much money we're going to continue to get, that we have the capacity to manage those lines, because frankly, we're making the cutbacks we're making because we don't have the resources for the operations. So it seems to me that if we invest in capital expenses, one of two things. One, it's something that the cities will be able to count on. Two, if the city discontinues the route, we can reuse the capital, the infrastructure, whether it's a small bus or electric bus or whatever it is, back into the fleet. And that the other is that we maintain the same level of standards for bus stops and all those other things that people really will rely on in terms of being able to use the system more efficiently. And it's more of a thought, but just something I wanted to put out there. And then lastly, when the budget comes back, I do think better understanding all of the sources of funding that we think are going to be able to sustain next network. And I would just say this to my colleagues, that I am very concerned that we really figure out a way to address operations and maintenance, but maintenance in particular in any of the budget discussions we're having, whether it's with Measure B or any other sources of funds, because the more I've been thinking about the way we've done these investments, it's not surprising to me that if we can't keep building and keep without operating money, and I feel like we just finally hit the tipping point, and I'm very concerned about the long-term health of VTA given that tipping point. So thank you.
Director Carr.
Thank the staff as well. Okay, there we go. Now I can hear myself. Thanks for looking at and addressing some of the issues that came out of South County and the way that we've looked at some of the routes. And I think those of us from South County are in agreement that we have some of the lowest ridership on the existing routes and that we need to make some changes. But I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit more, Jim, about following up with Supervisor Chavez's question about evaluation. How do we evaluate this plan, maybe perhaps even individual routes? You know, the staff report sort of begs patience, but talk to me a little bit about how we're going to maintain that patience in an evaluation process.
Sure. So there's a couple things. You know, our basic evaluation standard is always ridership. How many riders we carry per hour on a service. And as we're obviously making a fundamental change in our transportation system, not only with the next network, but with the BART line coming in and, you know, creating that new demand for transit services. Our current sustainability policy, transit sustainability policy, basically says that it takes about 2 years for new services to mature, for people to change their habits of travel, to go through a couple seasons of, you know, spring and summer and school in and school out and vacations. And then there's actually a curve that we follow that, you know, certain amount we expect, like 60% we expect to show up in 6 months and 70% in a year and that kind of thing. And so this is what we're going to be refining and coming back to the board with later this summer, because one of the things that obviously as part of this plan is we've categorize some services as ridership services and some services as coverage services. So there's also a thought that we need to sort of look at, you know, to what standard do we hold those two different kinds of services, because they serve fundamentally different types of mobility needs. So that's the basics of what we'll be coming back with.
Okay. So then do we assume flexibility that we will need to be making changes, or do we build in triggers that will force changes?
Well, I think we will make changes. There will be some things that we will put in that will not work as well as we had hoped. There will be other things, demands that will occur with BART coming in that we might not even have imagined, where something will come up and somebody will say, whoa, it'd be really great if you had this route that went from here to here, and then we may say, yeah, you know, you're right, that's probably a great thing. So, you know, we make major service changes twice a year, but we have the ability to make service changes every quarter. So we're going to use that to be nimble and as we see things that aren't working, to address them.
Great, thank you. And I think just going through this process and seeing some of the changes that have happened through this process, I think some of us can have a comfort level that those things do happen when we hear from the public and when we understand how changes are affecting us. I wanted to ask as well, also along the lines of evaluation, and we've talked about the Houston example, is that perhaps a model that shows us what kind of timeframes we should be thinking about for, not that we want to do this again anytime soon, but the next time we're going to do this? We don't want to wait until, if this realizes some of the growth that we hope it does, we don't want to wait until we have that downturn until we start making major changes again. We want to somehow stay ahead of the curve. And is the Houston example one that can sort of demonstrate a timeline for us?
Yeah, well, so we've done these kind of efforts. The last one we did was in 2008, the mayor remembers. And this one was largely built on it was time to do it again, and we were looking at our ridership declining, but also with BART coming online. We're probably going to do another one. Depending, the size of the scope is unsure when BART Phase 2 comes, because that obviously changes how the rest of San Jose through the downtown and into Santa Clara is served, and that'll have be a game changer for a lot of transit service. So that's probably the next big trigger in terms of a catalyst for a change. But these major efforts are typically on 5, 6, 7, 8, those kinds of cycles, because you do have, hopefully we get a lot of this right, and we look at those big triggers to sort of start the next process.
So we have that already in place with BART Phase 2 in our case?
Yeah, that's in our planning program, that we would do that for sure.
Okay, good, okay. And then I wanted to follow up with the mayor's comments about budget, and once we approve a budget that we need to, perhaps go through this one more time, and I would certainly support that with the particular notion of however we end up with fares. I would say, and I think what we've heard from a lot of speakers, is this plan really suggests more transfers than perhaps people are currently doing. And depending on how we handle transfers in our fare process during our budget, may mean that this plan is perhaps not going to realize what people think it is or what we're promising people. So I do think we're going to need to take that into consideration as well when we go through the budget process. And lastly, I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, there is a letter in your reading packets from the cities of Morgan Hill and Gilroy, supporting the plan and talking really about the core connectivity part of this that is sort of the next steps. And in South County, it makes sense, obviously, to get rid of the very low, some of the lowest performing lines in the entire system. But South County geographically doesn't really fit into the model of the Garrett Walker approach to this for geography reasons more than anything else. And it provides us really, actually, I think, a unique opportunity to really be looking at South County as perhaps an incubator for some innovative approaches, thinking about first, last mile, and the ways that people move, the ways that people move really into our express bus system and move people into the system that we're talking about tonight. The Citizens Advisory Committee in their latest comments also supported that issue, and so I want to just bring that to all of your attention, that we'll be talking more about that, and we hope that VTA will be talking about South County as perhaps one of those first approaches for looking at innovative ways of first and last mile and other kinds of connectivity issues. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Director O'Neill.
Thank you. So I agree with most of everything I think that Member Carr had to say, and particularly I think this is a great start, but as we see around the country, of even places like New York are seeing a decrease in transit ridership, that says to me that people are starting to look at transportation in a very different way, and that we do need to continue to be on the forefront of that thinking, and find, because if we're going to have solutions that move you, we really have to figure out, where are people going and how are they living today, and is it different than what was happening 40 years ago or more. And as we see these kind of interesting data on transit ridership, and in spite of reading some of these different reports and things where the traffic has just gotten worse and worse, and yet some people seem to be willing to put up with that traffic rather than riding transit. So I mean, I think that that's something that we all really need to look at, instead of telling people this is the solution that you need to take, figuring out, you know, what do we need to provide to help you get to work or school or the rest of your life as expeditiously as possible. I also agree with some of the concerns about the budgeting, and I think agencies all over the area are starting to see, you know, that some of the other challenges that are coming into budgets these days, and you know, so we're all going to have to be incredibly sensitive to that. So a couple of my questions specifically had to do, once again, about the Route 181 and hearing some of the frustration. You know, when I read some of the reports and the feedback, is it your feeling that some of the members, say the current riders of 181, you know, when they expressed how many transfers might have to occur, and I realize that we're going to a different type of network, and we're going to be looking at the potential of reinstituting the transfer, which has not been available for a long time. Are the routes, the alternatives going to be that transfer intensive for most people? Or are they not really understanding how, you know, how these routes are going, depending on where we're hearing people are coming into the university or they're coming into major governmental work centers in the downtown area?
Yeah, I think most I would characterize most of the transfer issues are not in the southern end, not you know, from Berryessa downtown, because I think we do have a very good handle on that with the Rapid 500 that gets people into downtown very quickly. There's a fair amount of people that ride the Express 181 that catch it that really aren't BART riders now. They live in southern Fremont. They live along the route, and those people will need to get to a BART station, whether it's their local transit service or, you know, another method. So those people now have a little different trip than they would have had currently, where they might be on the 181 route and then they can just walk out from their apartment or their house and catch that route, because it is on some local streets before it gets over to the freeway, and some of those streets have a fairly high concentration of apartments and higher density housing on them.
Okay, and so, and the second question I have, the Route 88 particularly for the Gunn High School users in Palo Alto, and, you know, looking at what the report said, and there was going to be several, like, kind of school bell schedules and one alternative, and looking at what there is now, except for the elimination of the midday routes, which I understand, basically looking at the numbers that were recorded for ridership, is there that much of a difference between what we're proposing and with the elimination of the midday from, say, the before school, after school, from what currently exists?
I'm not.
It seems somewhat comparable.
Yes, so presently the school service, 3 trips southbound in the morning and 3 trips northbound in the evening, would remain basically the same, be it under a different name, the 288 rather than the 88. We're also looking at providing an additional, say, 4 or 5